Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm still Robert Winters.
Yes.
Actually, one thing we probably should do here, just a few
Yeah.
quick photos we did take from the mayor. Not to dwell too
here we
much on
go.
it, maybe
All right.
scrolling down just a little bit
There
here.
you go.
Right? Again, I snapped a lot, but most of them, since I didn't have a flash, weren't the best. So
Donna Lopez.
this is when
swearing in,
Mayor McGovern
McGovern.
was being sworn in by Donald
Yeah.
Lopez. Then Mark gave a really nice remarks. I thought he gave a great
He's very
inaugural
good.
speech.
Cambridge United.
Yeah, he was very much emphasizing the notion of a sort of a more unified way of doing business, because we have had a sort of a widening division.
Yeah, I think it's going to be better. I have this.
I think it'll be better.
And I like. Yep.
I think some of the new people will actually serve to make it better.
Mark is a good peacemaker too. I mean,
Mark is a good peacemaker,
Yep.
and I think. I just think so. I have a good thing. One of the things that was sort of nice about this, so there's a photo of Pauline Carter Wells singing Imagine.
Right.
But I was speaking with former Mayor Ken Reeves at the meeting, and he points out, he said, "Did you see the portrait of Mayor Ackerman?" I said, "What are you talking about?"
Right here.
Right?
Yeah.
And apparently, I believe it was Mayor Simmons made the arrangements to have the portrait made, because there was a portrait of Mayor Ackerman who was in the Ackerman room of City Hall that was kind of a little more of an abstraction. And so went back in after all the proceedings were all done. After
So is this on the back wall?
It's on the back wall.
It's on the right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is all the relatively recent modern era mayors are represented on the walls of the Sullivan Chamber.
Right.
The only two exceptions actually are David Marr and Denise Simmons. But I imagine at some point in a appropriate.
David Marr's portraits there?
No, those are the two that are not.
Not there yet. Okay.
No, if you actually go around, I'm gonna say them all real fast. There's Alice Wolfe, there's Ken Reeves, there's Mickey the Dude. Well, actually, it is the Sullivan Chamber, so there are 4 Sullivans at the very front.
I know.
Mickey the Dude, Edward Sullivan, Walter Sullivan, and Michael Sullivan. Then Al Vellucci. There's Tom Danahy, Frank Duhay, Anthony Galluccio.
Right.
And now the Barbara Ackerman portrait. And then Lenny and Sheila Russell, both, who were mayors. And Henrietta Davis.
Yeah, and I just have to look for Henrietta. I probably have seen it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Henrietta, as soon as you walk in, immediately on your right. To see that.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was kind of a nice little extra special treat. I didn't know about that. And thanks to Ken for pointing it out. So that was great. So anyway, so now the new council term begins.
Yeah.
It's not at all clear whether there are any kind of preset priorities that are in the works. There are some matters that
what was a issue that's going to be carried over, you think? I mean, petitions got resolved, right? The Volpe thing and all that.
The biggest ones did. There is the Kroon petition, which is a sort of a Harvard Square rezoning one, which I thought was sort of going to be allowed to expire, but now it's actually meeting at the planning board, and they've done some revisions.
Oh, so that's
got legs. That may still make it.
Alewife going to be big this term.
The thing about Alewife is that, and this is sort of a larger issue, is that when there was a big push. Good God, how long is it? It was almost 4 years ago now to actually have a master plan.
Oh, right.
Which
you're talking about Envision.
Well, eventually
it
led to these sort of community conversations, and then it led to the Envision Cambridge process, right?
Which we're halfway through now?
At least halfway through. And it's been a pretty good, robust process.
I mean, you're on the advisory.
The advisory committee as well as on the housing committee. But there has been a bit of a trend recently of. So as I like to say, it's kicking the can down the road. So saying like, well, what about traffic or transportation or housing or whatever? Like, well, we should refer that to the Envision process.
Right.
In a political world, this is there is a term that's used in politics called sandbagging, which is basically loading up something with such unrealistic expectations so that you could never possibly satisfy people's expectations. So I think there's a little bit of a danger in doing that. But there are some matters, like Alewife planning and whatever, which are naturally belong before the Envision Cambridge, before the council chimes in. Ultimately, the Envision process will lead to recommendations. The council and city administration and city council don't have to listen to any of them.
Right.
right? There's nothing binding about what will come of it, but hopefully they'll come out with a good product, and we'll sort of see how it shakes out after that. But certainly in the Alewife area, the front-loaded portion of the Envision Cambridge process was to focus primarily on the Alewife area.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were other working groups on housing and economic development and other things. So that's at the point where they sort of have some firmed up recommendations, but it's not
But
officially.
now the Wheeler Street project, that actually got passed, didn't it?
Yeah.
And that's part
and
of
permitted.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The thing
that
is that
parcel.
though there were some who wanted to see the master plan process, which later became called Envision Cambridge process.
Finished before.
Yeah, but some
it's
people
not possible.
wanted to see a de facto moratorium on all things in Cambridge.
Right, that's not gonna happen.
It was made very clear right up front that that's
we
not.
we don't own the land. You know,
We
it
don't-
comes down to that. It's property and development's gonna keep happening, and you have to figure out how to do it.
That's it. So what you're really doing is with Envision Cambridge, you're making recommendations that may change zoning and land use policies, but
That's all you can do.
But you're not going to just
Right.
yank away all the economic potential out of a part of the city, at least not without a fight,
Right.
right? A legal fight.
So this is a done deal, right?
Well, the
Or-
thing is the Concord Alewife plan,
Yeah.
which is now well over a decade old, probably about
Mhm.
15 years ago.
Mm.
That actually predicted and encouraged housing development
Right.
in the Alewife quadrangle and
Right.
triangle areas. What I think it is a fair statement to say, I think,
Mhm.
that the whole talk about the master plan, which led to Envision Cambridge,
Mhm.
was largely spurred by the fact that the development that was made possible in that area started happening faster than people expected.
Right.
And then there was a lot of alarm, and there was
Mhm.
also traffic issues, and
Still will be.
yeah. But most people who are in the planning business will acknowledge that housing development doesn't generally generate traffic nearly so much as commercial development would.
Mm.
So, especially if you're doing transit-oriented development, which is like housing close
Right.
to transit, right?
Okay.
So some of the development in the triangle, which is the portion that's the north of the railroad tracks,
So it's beyond the Alway station. It's more where
west of Alewife Station,
Fawcett Street, around where
Yeah.
Iggy's is. and all
basically the
that, yeah.
portion that's the
Oh.
quadrangle.
Oh.
It's the portion that straddles the.
Well, where are all those big buildings now? Is what would you call that part? It's got its little road that goes right behind
There's the
Alway.
old Cambridge Park Drive. Well, it's
Okay.
actually called Cambridge Park Drive. It used to be
Okay.
called the Rinjab
So-
Extension.
There's like
It's
hundreds of units there.
massively
How
developed.
did that get developed?
Well, that was happening under the Concord Alewife plan. I think it was, and the development was a little slower to arrive into the quadrangle area. And now that's been actually happening and kind of creeping its way west, up,
But then
Wheeler
that's
Street.
why
and now
people are then talking
Fawcett
about
Street, now Wheeler
some kind
Street.
of tunnel or not tunnel, a bridge, because that's here, but then to get to the quadrangle, you need a
Well,
more
this is-
access, right? That's
you know,
tricky.
This is going to be,
Yeah.
I think, an interesting bit of evasive rhetoric for the
Oh.
2018-2019.
Invasive rhetoric.
The thing is that everybody argues that that you need to have an additional connection between over the railroad tracks or under the railroad tracks or whatever.
Somewhere over you need
Yeah.
something,
I think you do need
Yeah.
something.
and that's been
and
people talking
I
about for
remember
years,
talking with
right?
Dennis Carlone.
Yeah.
He was advocating actually having a real road bridge over there years
Right.
ago.
Yeah.
The
I-
original
frankly, I
Alewife
think
plan
that's what
back
should
going
be.
back in the 1970s.
I know you
called
showed
for
me that.
having
You brought in
a
that
bridge.
pamphlet, right?
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
gotta happen,
Well,
frankly.
I actually agree, but
Yeah.
here's the problem: is
Yeah.
that you can't just wish it into existence.
No, everyone has to pay for it.
Who's going to pay for it?
All the people that wanna build there.
All right. So the thing is that so when you what
Yeah.
you do is you say you want to
You make
build this thing
deals.
here. So
Right.
what can
What are
we
you gonna
require
offer?
of you?
Exactly.
So they have in fact required things like landing sites for a crossing.
Okay,
So
That's true.
those are in some
Yeah.
agreements, but the actual money and the approval from the state and the MBTA to actually build over there is something that still
you
has
don't
to be
think they would be
negotiated.
supportive of that, the MBTA and the state?
When Brian Murphy was with us, still, Brian, I remember speaking with him out there, and
Yeah.
there was this long-term hope,
That they would do
you
that.
know, but you know, you can't take hope to
Yeah.
the bank here,
No.
and which was that you would build a new commuter rail station there. And with the station, then that would provide the structure that you would actually
okay,
have
because
the
right now
overpass.
it's just subway, it's not.
Yeah.
Ah.
So that would actually
But
be
the subway connects right to the commuter rail.
right. So
Yeah.
right. So well, listen.
Whatever.
A bigger issue,
Okay.
of course, is that
Yes.
I think we're ridiculous the way we have a complete separation of commuter rail and the T.
Well,
There are
that's a good
some
point,
commuter
too.
rail lines
Yeah.
that honestly ought to be
And
converted.
that's not
to
true
rapid
everywhere. I
transit.
mean, North Station is connected, no?
Yeah, I just think we should
Yeah.
be expanding the
Yeah,
rapid
we should have
transit.
light rail. We really have
Yeah,
not
no,
a good system.
right.
in this, you know.
But here's the thing: is that
Yeah.
this is going to be the sort of ridiculous rhetoric. Is that I
Oh.
think you're going to have most of the city councilors saying how we demand that there must be a bridge here. But you know, you can demand it, but
Well, it's a way you demand.
But
Not
you-
demand. I wouldn't use the word
Yeah,
demand. You
but-
negotiate.
but
a
people
bridge.
I've heard him say about the LY plan coming out of Envision that well, this is a non-starter unless there's a bridge.
Well,
okay.
yeah, Craig said that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Dennis Carlone is pretty much saying it as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, but I do think what they're saying is we got to work on figuring how we're going to get that.
right now there's a challenge. I mean, I will.
But you have to meet the challenge. I think it's really necessary. I really do.
So you've got 9 new city councilors, or
Yeah.
at least 9
No.
councilors, 3 brand new.
3 brand.
I think one of the two, well, at least 2 biggest challenges, other than the gigantic challenges like making
Yeah.
housing affordable, which
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
nobody's going to succeed in that
Yeah. Right.
right away.
Mm.
Number one, small mechanical one is find a way to make that connection,
Yeah.
to make a more of a unified.
Frankly, if you're going to do a
neighborhood.
bridge, if it's not for cars too, then I think it's a waste of money.
I agree, but
or something. It can't just be
Dennis-
for people walking
Dennis
over.
argues how it should be not just bikes and pedestrians, but also shuttle buses. So you should get people from the T and just have people being
But
shuttled.
right now, how do you
shuttled
get
through.
out of Cambridge Drive Parkway? You have
Turn
to
around and go out the way
Right.
you came in.
Because some people have
basically.
had trying to get something to Route 2. Why can't they do that?
Well,
because then
because the little river is there. It's sort of
Oh,
it's
that's
a
true. Then you got
sensitive
that whole-
wetland area. So that's this. You could make.
But is-
They should be making at least a pedestrian crossing over the little river to connect
Okay.
that.
But if it was also cars, then couldn't you theoretically have some connection between Cambridge Drive and the other side, the quadrangle? Or
That
what?
was what was originally
Yeah.
proposed in the fish book back in I
Yeah.
think it was the 1970s.
I go with that.
Um,
And that was before. I just feel like you need another means of exit.
You know, each time when I've mentioned that was a good
Yeah.
plan then, it's a good plan
Yeah.
now, people say, well, the people in Belmont are not going to be thrilled because
What do they care about? It's all
Well, I'll
I'm talking
tell-
internal right now.
I'll tell you why they care is that if you're on Route 2,
Oh, I'm not talking about going out to Route 2.
no, all right, or if you're on the Fresh Pond Parkway and,
Yeah.
it's jammed full of traffic,
Yeah.
eventually people say, well, are there any alternatives? So
People
if
go
you,
down Cambridge Drive Parkway.
and then basically
So
sort of
why
come
would
from
Belmont complain?
Belmont
It would be Cambridge that would complain. No?
well, because ultimately it lets you out on Concord Ave, and then maybe they're sort of heading
That's still
over towards
Cambridge
the-
right there.
I know.
Oh,
I think
forget
it's
that
something
argument.
people.
Nah,
that
that doesn't
is-
hold water.
It should be that issue should be forced, and if some people aren't thrilled about it, tough. You know.
But do you agree with me that there needs to be another way?
Yes.
If you're going to have this much development, you have to have more than one way
The
in and one way
triangle
out.
should not be one big cul-de-sac with
Exactly.
thousands of
There
people
you
living
go.
on it.
Thank
It's
you.
ridiculous.
Let's go to something
Right.
else. Right. That's going to be a big
All right.
issue for this
So,
council.
so there's one challenge.
why-
You know, I
yeah.
mean, believe me, I can make you a long list of
Yeah.
challenges here. I'll give you
Right.
a hard challenge.
Yeah.
Find a way to
Yeah.
make that happen.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah,
and if
you're
that
right.
means lobbying legislators, if that
Right.
means negotiating
With
deals,
developers?
if it means allowing
Yeah,
a little
right.
extra
I know.
development
I
in
know.
order to
You
get
gotta
the
make that
funds to
happen.
make it
Right.
happen, make it happen, okay?
Yep.
And honestly, if 2 years from now, you know, and they're
And we're
just
still dealing with
swearing in some new councilors
And
and
that
they
hasn't
haven't done that, I will have to
Vote no.
say they were
Yeah.
disappointed. It would be a
Yeah.
disappointment.
So what's the other issues?
The other one here, which is, and again, these are sort of hard challenges because
Yeah.
I see this as sort of the hardest challenge of all.
Ooh.
Everybody talks about income inequality
Oh, yeah.
and the
Mhm.
inability to connect people who are kids born and raised here, especially
Right.
kids who are born
To
and raised
stay
in public
here.
housing,
Right.
to stay here and
Right.
not just to stay here, because I
they will.
suppose you could just have people exist in public housing,
Yeah.
but to actually find economic opportunity here.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody talks about the dilemma of people growing up in Newtown Court, Washington Elms, and seeing all this economic activity in
And not
Kendall,
being able to
and having
benefit from it.
absolutely no
Yeah.
connection to them.
Okay.
Luis Vasquez, when he was a candidate some years ago,
Right.
this is something he talked about
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
right? And I've heard that when there was counselors, oh goodness, it was Mazin and Dennis Benzan,
Right.
when they were talking about these STEAM and STEM
Right. Yeah.
initiatives and whatever. It
Yeah.
was sort of in the context at the time of the Foundry property, but
Right.
but everybody was talking about finding these sort of pathways
Mhm.
toward economic opportunity for younger people primarily,
Mm-hmm.
who are growing up in the city.
Has that happened a little bit? No.
A little bit, but
Yeah.
the one thing I think it came out of that whole process was that another position was added to sort of be a STEM/STEAM coordinator.
What happened to that? Didn't they appoint
A
somebody?
person was hired,
And
I
where
don't
do
actually.
they ever give reports or
I maybe.
come before the council?
I'm just not aware of them, but that doesn't.
Well,
mean,
that's not good. If you're not aware of them, then that's not good.
Right, but
I'm
the
not
thing
aware
is,
of them.
when they did the Volpe rezoning,
Yeah.
one thing I was looking at, and some of the benefits that came out of that is
There's
there's
something to do
there
with
was a
it.
job connector component
Right.
that MIT is going to be
Right.
helping create for that. But that's my other big challenge. But the first one is just build a bridge, right? Okay, that's just mechanical, right? Maybe
Not
one
a
day.
wall, a bridge.
Maybe
right?
one day they'll build it. I actually saw a photo today of a bridge, a bridge over something that's made with 3D printing. It's a Dutch bridge with 3D. So here's a challenge,
Impossible.
right? Build a
Right.
3D printed
well,
bridge
MIT
over the
has
railroad
those
tracks,
challenges
right?
all the time, right?
Find a way to build
Yeah.
a bridge, right?
Yeah.
But the harder challenge
Mhm.
is to actually do that kind of economic connection.
Mhm.
And I think it matters a lot because as kids are going to be growing up in the
Well,
city.
what's the school committee doing? What's the schools doing? I mean,
You know,
it's got to
this-
start in the high school there.
That's, I think
Engineering, all that stuff.
the only way to do this
Yeah.
is to sort of basically be able to do 7-ball juggling. You've got to have schools, you've got to have local
Employers.
industry start getting buy-in,
Universities.
you've got to get your political people, you've got to get your universities in here, you got to get the kids themselves jazzed about
I
it,
think,
right?
I think they can get jazzed. Robotics.
Yeah.
I think there's actually something going
I was
on with that. Yeah.
I was speaking with one of the
Mhm.
city council candidates who was not elected at the inaugural banquet thing yesterday about that. Is that maybe that'll be something like starting off with a pilot program within CRLS, which is a little bit more like some of the charter schools do,
Yeah.
where you basically do internships,
Mhm.
and it's kind of
And you don't
a
think
work.
that's happening now?
I don't know that that's happening.
Yeah, all right. That's
mean,
something to look
they
at. If
have-
anybody out listening to this, if you're
They've had the Ringe School of
Let us
Technical
know.
Arts,
let Robert know.
whatever the modern.
No, but I do
information
think
of it.
there's more, and I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah. I was talking with the city manager actually yesterday about. I was sort of reminiscing about way back in. I think it was actually it could have been as early as the late '80s. Certainly, maybe early '90s, when Michael Rosenberg was head of the community development department, and they were talking about development in the Kendall Square area, right? So before now, there's buildings everywhere down there, but back then it was just
I remember Leach
empty
Community.
fields, right?
Wow.
Well, that's actually on East Cambridge. I'm talking about around Kendall
okay.
Square proper,
You're right, it was,
straddling Broadway,
Yep,
for example.
yep.
And then just everything just rose like mad, right? But they were talking. This is when life sciences and biotech used to be the word everybody used, right? When it was starting to sort of become a thing in Cambridge,
Yeah.
there was really a lot of planning about this. This is not accidental, but the
Well, that was
concern
the meeting that Henrietta had at the library that I went to.
many
with
years
Phil.
later.
No, but there was this whole, what's his name? The Biogen person, Philip somebody. They're all in my, there's a whole,
Sharp.
yeah,
Sharp,
they were all
yeah.
there. There's this whole history of how Kendall became what it is.
Yeah, well, I remember going to
All the
meetings
deals that got made.
back then, and there was.
This was in the 70s it started.
But people are saying, okay, so
Yeah.
if you're going to create this sort of economic engine there, which is actually going to be good for this Cambridge tax base, then that's wonderful. But how is that going to make a connection for people who are from Cambridge
Right.
to get jobs,
Right.
to be part of that
What did
economic
they say?
miracle? Well, at the time, you used to hear things about, it was very haphazard. It was you hear talk about tech jobs,
Yeah.
whether it
labs,
was sort of maintaining things for the labs instead
Right.
of just getting you started in that way.
Right.
But the problem as things has developed, or at least the way I see it, is that if you're running a big company in life sciences or whatever, and you've got your pick of the litter of recently minted PhDs from MIT all
Yeah.
around you,
Yeah.
and you have a choice between, hiring this extremely qualified person who's hungry for that job,
Yeah.
or giving a kid a break.
Well, wait. How are you comparing? That's an apple and orange. What are you
Well-
talking about? A PhD who knows the field, and then a kid.
I mean, it's different types of jobs,
Oh,
right?
Right, but that PhD isn't going to go for that
Right.
job.
Well, how many of the jobs who are just sort of
Oh,
the more,
wow.
a little bit more entry level, or medium level entry
I think a
kind
lot
positions?
of more health.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to have a
Yeah.
situation where the only jobs that are made available basically become custodians for
No, but
pharmaceutical
there's people that
companies.
become, X-ray technicians, or people that
Yeah.
work with,
Yeah.
those are good jobs,
Techs.
or good.
That's right, and
techs,
Michael Rosenberg
right.
Michael Rosenberg talked about that back then. Is that
Yeah.
they're trying to create these sort of tech jobs,
Mhm.
whatever. So there are somewhat skilled jobs, and they become very
Yeah, or
essential
maintaining
parts of this.
equipment, facilities,
Maintaining
that's
equipment,
all important
That's right.
stuff.
Pretty skilled. You can
Yeah.
actually become very skilled in it and
Right.
become indispensable.
Facilities, yeah.
So I think this is one of the great unfinished
Hmm.
orders of business, and build the bridge.
Yeah, but then
And
build
then
that
build
other
those
bridge.
bridges, too.
Right, but I think
Right?
that, hopefully I think that's going on with the schools, but we would need to
Yeah.
get somebody from the schools to
you
talk
know-
about. Well, let's invite that person you just talked about.
We can do that. We can do that.
Let's find out who it is. Okay.
Right, but I mean, I could see the 2018, 2019 City Council very quickly start devolving into a big discussion of trees and growth.
No,
and
actually, when I'm
whatever.
thinking of who's on there,
Or-
I think the issues you raised, I don't know about much of the bridge, but the job, I think, is definitely on the minds
I'm-
of some of those people.
I'd like
Yeah.
to challenge them to sort of
Yeah.
don't just take on the easy
No,
stuff.
no, I could see
right?
them doing this actually, and I'm
Yeah.
very encouraged by it, because especially two of them, all of them, their kids are in the schools, or
Yes.
have gone to the schools, or they went to the school themselves.
Yeah,
I mean, actually, you could say that about at least 4 or 5 of them, but, so I think they have a real, connection to that. I think it's gonna be a good year,
no, I think that there's a lot of
Yeah.
potential there.
a lot of potential.
Yeah,
But you're right, it could be about climate resiliency, but also, how does that relate to actual, there's jobs in that stuff too, right?
well, then that's one part of the equation.
exactly,
Then,
yeah.
you could actually use an interest in climate and resiliency to actually foster
We
the
need
growth
more
of certain
this or that,
industries.
right, solars,
that actually
training,
provide
right,
those
all
jobs.
that
Right,
stuff,
right.
yeah.
So why
Yeah.
can't we have sort of like a solar startups, who are sort
Which
of really making
yeah.
such things happen?
There's a
right?
lot of startups.
Yeah.
It is,
But I just hope that that's not one of those things that gets stuck on the back burner.
I don't think it
right?
will,
Yeah.
not after listening to.
Well, we hope so. We hope so.
No, but I
right?
actually think that is, one of their, I think a lot of the new accounts in particular ones
Yeah.
that happen.
I hope so. But the thing is a lot of times what happens is, counselors can make a choice early on. They can say, let's think hard about what we think is really the very, very best things for the city, or what do these political people around us want us to do?
Yeah, right.
And that's not always the same thing as doing what's best for
No,
the
but
city.
you know what, I think the closer they also work with the school committee too, it's a natural, and with Mark being, he was a school committee
He was
person,
on a school
right?
committee, yeah.
So I think it's good, because he knows these issues, and
Yeah,
hopefully we'll get this done.
yeah. Well, let's
for
see if
sure.
they
I mean,
can kind of
we
patch it
don't know what's being done, I'm kind of ignorant of that,
Right.
so I'm gonna try to find that out.
Yeah, I think it's probably fair to say that since the Envision Cambridge process is not designed to be an eternal process, it may actually come out with final recommendations overall as early as late in 2018. I think that's the target date.
Yeah, well, they've already, when they had their, whatever, preliminary report, did say some things, but-
Talking about with that as sort of the time frame.
Right,
So a big piece of what a challenge that'll be before them is to how do you respond to those recommendations? Do you say, hey, that's great?
yeah.
Do you move on them? Do you push back? Do you say
Yeah.
we disagree with you on this here? That's going to be a challenge, I think, that will come as the year progresses.
Well, there already was a little pushback from their presentations. It's like saying, a very long time frame.
Yeah,
This
and
isn't
I
realistic.
think
It's
people-
true. You're not dealing with who owns property there.
Right. People are going to have to
Big
get
deal.
ready for that part
Yeah.
of it. The notion that
Yeah.
somehow this brilliant set of recommendations
Yeah.
and it's
It's sort of
extraordinarily
disregarding some realities.
it disregards reality. The thing is that what I think was a more realistic expectation is to come up with some really good ideas and a different framing of certain things. Like I think,
Yeah,
in the meetings I've been at, they talk a lot about how do you envision the corridors, Mass Ave
Right.
corridor, so it's not all about like Central Square,
No.
Harvard Square, whatever.
But
It's
I think
how do you
in some ways,
corridors.
people feel it really wasn't addressing the real issues of how can you change traffic, or, it wasn't,
Yeah.
some people argued too many,
Well, that's
not
one of
accounting for more cars.
again, I don't want to
Yeah.
sound like a broken record
Yeah.
on this, but sometimes we fall into a trap in the city
Mhm.
where we say, well, we need to get people out of cars and onto bikes and whatever. And,
Oh, no,
and that's all nice.
No, I understand
but
it.
it
That's,
doesn't
no,
solve
what
the
I'm saying
problem.
is you can't just think that way. You have to think
Right.
you are gonna have these
Yeah.
cars.
Yeah,
They-
it's actually one of my
Yeah.
concerns about the Envision process is that
Mhm.
we'll come up with too many recommendations that are not sufficiently comprehensive. They won't be based on the sort of wishful thinking model.
Well, I hope not, because that's a lot of
things.
millions of dollars wasted.
And there's still unaddressed is sort of what does the future hold when you have driverless vehicles
Oh,
or
please.
lots of
Oh.
Ubers and Lifts?
Which-
What's the
right.
future of public transportation really going to be?
Yeah.
Right. Will that be funded? Will it be
Mhm.
expanded? Will it go away?
Mhm.
Right? There's a lot of things that are made unclear, and how that dovetails in with economic development. So, wouldn't it be great if we could all shop locally? But that's just not the reality right now for a lot of people.
It is, because they're ordering it online.
Well, but if you want to buy groceries, many people in Cambridge hop in a vehicle and go over to Market Basket in Somerville.
Many, but many
Right.
go to Whole Foods or go to Trader Joe's
Some do.
or order online.
Right, but there are
Right.
economic reasons why a lot of people
Yeah.
are not going to make that choice.
True, but there's
Right.
all kinds of people.
And they're
go
not going to
Market
hop on a
Basket.
bike to go biking over to Market Basket.
I know
either,
people who
especially
do
if
that.
it's 3 degrees out.
No, but there are people
Right.
that bike over there.
Yeah. No, I know. I see them for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. But
All right,
so
2
anyways,
seconds left.
so
here.
there are some undone
Yes.
tasks, but So
Build
anyway,
bridges is the
build
message.
some bridges. There we go. So anyway, maybe one of the things I thought we might have done today, but maybe we'll do it
Oh.
next week.
Oh,
was
is
just
what
sort
was
of
happening?
basically I laid out a program of things from 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of say, well, how well did we meet them?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do that next
But
week.
meanwhile, the Cambridge boys basketball undefeated. They're playing
Undefeated.
Brookline
There
tonight.
we go.
Okay.
See you next
Bye.
week.